In this video, I'm going to explain why it's not too late to jump from 3D to 5D. And not only that, I'm going to be sharing with you exactly some steps that you can take to help you jump timelines from 3D to 5D and what actually 5D is. Firstly, if you could just do me a huge favor, if you are new here or you are a returning viewer, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't done already, and the bell notification so that you can be notified of when future videos come out, because you're not going to want to miss any future videos that help you on your spiritual journey, your ascension journey, and your inner child healing journey. So with that being said, let's dive straight into the video. So officially, it is very exciting times in humanity right now. It may not look it, may seem like there is a lot of chaos going on in the world because of like economic things, banks, the thing that happened like 3 years ago, the big thing that caused a lot of uncertainty, and it just seems like it's getting worse and worse. The political climate, everything about the world just seems very pessimistic at the moment, but I rest assure you we are in very exciting times, and it will get worse before it will get better. But that is because what is going on here now is that we are experiencing a timeline split. And it's been prophesied for thousands of years now by prophets, by many indigenous leaders, and many of those who have gone through hypnotherapy and got the guidance from their higher selves that there will be a split on Earth taking place. And this split will be those that descend further into chaos in the world, and those that will choose the path, the timeline of the ascension and the timeline of the Christ in consciousness. So we are in that exciting time now where we are beginning to experience a split between those that are unawakened and those that are wide awake. So this video is to tell you that it's not too late to go down that timeline, because we're not fully there yet in the timeline of the higher elevated states of consciousness. It is becoming more and more aware that people are now fully waking up. And I'm not just talking about woke or waking up to the political corruption, just being aware of corruption and conspiracy theories all around the world. What I'm talking about is that people are now waking up to their true divine essence. They're understanding that they are a limitless being here with a mission, with a purpose, and that they are pure divine creation from the God and Goddess. So people are waking up to this now, and what this means is now we are elevating and opening up this pathway, this timeline into the higher states of consciousness, which is referred to the 5D. And the other timeline, which is fear, manipulation and chaos, the cashless society, AI, is the 3D dimension. And we can go into further details about the 4D and all of that, but this video I'm just going to be referring to this timeline splits that we are experiencing in the world now. Because there are so many people on the earth now waking up, we are pulling ourselves and pulling in the ascension into our timeline. And often ascension 5D is labeled quite a new age term, which that does resonate with me. And the New Age community often always talk about, oh, when's ascension going to happen? When are we going to be in 5D? Like, all this bullshit is going to be over that's in the world. What is actually happening is the consciousness within the planet itself, because the planet is a sentient being, Mother Earth. The planet, as well as the collective, is actually ascending into higher states of consciousness. And we that have chosen to incarnate here on this earth are bringing down the frequency of the new earth and that timeline. And what this means is we will bring in and embody more of the Christ consciousness. And when we think of Christ, we often think of Jesus and religion. But Christ consciousness is a state of consciousness. It's the 5D unconditional consciousness that we hold within our DNAs, and we are kind of like the anchors that are bringing that into this earth to help the earth ascend and open up this timeline further. But now we are seeing this split more and more. Those that are choosing the path of the Christed consciousness and being more heart-centered, because that's what the Christ consciousness is being heart-centered and being open and being more in a high vibe frequency, and they're choosing that path. And then there's this people that are just getting consumed by fear, and that is the path that their soul has chosen to take. But I'm hearing you say, but what happens if I have family on that timeline? What if I feel I'm getting caught into that timeline and I want to be on my path of ascension? And there are many things that you can choose. It's always the choice, because what will happen, there will become a choice point, a point in time where we have to actually physically choose the timelines. These timelines are opening up and the split is becoming more obvious, but then there'll be a point in time where we have to choose those timelines. Do we want to descend further into chaos and believe the news and get manipulated and get controlled by the cabal and the elite? Or do we want to be a sovereign free being on and ascend into higher states of consciousness and be the divine spiritual beings that we actually are? And sometimes we can be in both at the same time, particularly if you're in a relationship with somebody that is maybe not spiritually awake, or you're in a job that does not resonate, you're in the matrix system that is designed to enslave us. That is the 3D reality. It's the inverted matrix designed to keep us stuck in that lower states of consciousness. So when we are in those places and we want to get over here on the 5D timeline, there are just several things we can do, and that is stop watching the news. And when I began to cut the news out, I felt happier. I didn't feel more anxious. And we've just recently moved, me and my partner, my son, we moved into a smaller apartment from my mother-in-law's. We'd been living with my mother-in-law for some time. And my mother-in-law is an avid news watcher. She watches it every morning, and there was kind of no getting away from it. I don't really have control over what she does and what she watches. And my son was seeing it, and obviously my partner was watching it as well. And he got very caught up into the news and the whole fear-mongering and manipulation of the big thing that happened several years ago now. And so since we moved out of that environment, my partner is less anxious. He suffers with anxiety. He's more positive, and I can just see there's a whole shift within him because we don't watch news here. We don't have our television even hooked up to some satellite aerial thing to even pick up on the news. So we just watch any live stream things if we want to watch that. And not that I'm particularly into Netflix and streaming programs anyway. But when we stop watching the news, this stops us being such a state of flight and fright and freeze, in a state of dysregulation and fear. So when we cut out the news, that means we're able to be more calm and embody more of our true self, and then be in a happier state, so we can begin to just live a life that is more freeing and calming, and not one based of fear. And we're not making choices out of fear of that because of what the news says for that day. So that's the first thing you can actually do to jump timelines, is stop watching the news. Stop believing the news, because often it's just false narrative of manipulation tactic of what they want you to believe. So then you're easier to control because you are in fear, because that's the 3D timeline, the fear. And it's not too late still. You can jump over to this timeline and choose to be a free sovereign being. And the 5D is all about being in service for the other. 3D is about being in service for the self. And often people that are more spiritually awake and embodying the Christ consciousness, they are people that deeply are in service of the other. They want to help, they want to support, they want to heal. They are kind, heart-centered people. And that is the timeline of the ascension, to be more heart-centered and in service of other. And we all have that passion, that drive within us, the purpose to come here and to make a difference in humanity, to help open and have that timeline take place on a collective, the 5D timeline. And this is closely linked to our passion. Our passion is often what we will be in service of. Our passion, our drive to make a difference in the world. Because a lot of people always want to feel like they're making a difference, because they want to feel they have some kind of value in the world, because they want to feel like they are important. And that, you got to remember, is ego. I'm important, I'm this, I'm that, and that is 3D, because the 3D is designed to keep us in the ego traps, the stories, the limiting beliefs, the triggers, the fear, the ego identity of small, poor me. And they don't want you to believe that you hold the keys to your true potential. It's actually ingrained in your DNA. You came here with a mission. You came here with purpose to help collectively ascend humanity. So when we are in our passion, we're in our purpose, we feel more in service of others. And that's the other thing we can do. So if you're sitting on that idea, whether that's an artistic expression or whether that's to guide people, be a mentor, take that step to fully owning that and put your service and your offer out into the world. What's the other thing we can do to shift us onto the 5D timeline? Is working on our ego triggers and understanding we live in the matrix. We live in a reality of mirrors where everything is reflected back to us. Because if we are triggered constantly, what we are doing is our ego is projecting our stories, our insecurities, our limiting beliefs onto the other person. Because if we feel insecure, we'll see that in another person, and then it will trigger us. And this means the ego is having hold of you. So we need to work on our triggers, work on our ego lessons, our life lessons, what we've come here to learn in this lifetime. And it's not about getting rid of the ego completely, because the ego is not your friend, but it's also not your enemy. The ego just wants to keep you safe and in your comfort zone. It's a survival mechanism. And when we begin to heal our triggers, when we begin to learn the lessons and shine the light of awareness onto the ego, it begins to dissolve. And then when it begins to dissolve, it will try to kick up a fuss, because it will try to keep you trapped and small and safe, because it doesn't want you to grow. It doesn't want you to evolve and ascend and be on that 5D timeline, because it feels not normal, it doesn't feel what you're used to. You're used to the fear, you're used to the manipulation, you're used to the control, because that's all you've known, so it feels safe. And our triggers are often just our ego kicking up a fuss, and we have a wound there because we have an attachment to the past. So we get triggered. It brings up that past pain of the emotion of the inner child wounding. So we have to heal these and transcend these in order for us to really begin to embody the Christ consciousness and declutter our bodies to bring in that divine frequency of the Christed consciousness to be able to have this new earth, because it's not the new earth, is the Christed consciousness. So I hope this video has been really helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because it's my mission to share my message as much as possible and to help you embody more Christ consciousness and heal your inner child. So I will see you on the next video. Much love.